I got 3 words for you. Pack the rent. You're locked on.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Before we dive into today's show, I'd like to take a quick moment to ask for a couple small favors. If you're enjoying the content here, subscribe to the show. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to it now. If you're already a subscriber on YouTube, but you haven't followed us on the audio versions, take your phone out, go on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast there. Download Locked On UConn. It not only helps build our UConn community, but also generates more revenue for UConn NIL initiatives. And also, there's something I'm also really excited about. We're donating 10% of all revenue to Husky Ticket Project. We gave $230 in the name of Eric Ryba, a 7-foot 5-star recruit that UConn just landed. So we are a proud partner with them, and it helps send kids to games and makes a real difference in underserved communities. So thank you for being a part of this journey with me and for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. Be on the show. So we're going to bring in Bobby Wilson right now and get Pete in shortly after that. Let's do it right now. Bobby, what's up, man? Hey, this is coming off a bye week. Really excited about this game. It's a chance for some ACC revenge after losing to Duke in Durham. But the big difference here is the Demon Deacons have to come up to East Hartford and the rent. So would love to get your thoughts on what this would mean to UConn to beat an ACC team who's played some pretty tough competition. They lost to Clemson, NC State, or they beat NC State, lost to Louisiana, lost to number 5 Mississippi at the time, Ole Miss, and obviously lost to UVA. What are your thoughts about this upcoming game?
Well,
you kind of froze on me. Bobby is in limbo. We're going to wait for his return. All right, we're going to drop you off, Bobby. Get yourself together and then come back. So honestly, while we're figuring our technical difficulties, what I'd like to say is this is a revenge game for UConn. They are looking to beat an ACC school. Right now, Wake Forest they're 1-4. They're having a difficult year, and so I'd really like for this team to step up in competition from a talent wise. But this team is in a bad way, and they're going to be ready to rock, and they're probably going to come to UConn not in the best mood after getting pounced or trounced by Clemson. So let's see if we can get our guys back in here and see if we can work out these technical difficulties. We got Bobby. Are you in the mix, Bobby? You still with us? I know Pete's there. Let me get my my stuff together here. I'm going to pause for a second. All right, man. It's rotating co-hosts. We're gonna keep that this little square open down here for when Bobby comes back. But we bring Pete Gallen in. Pete, thanks for jumping in on us here. Wake Forest is coming off of a terrible loss to Clemson. Now Clemson's no slouch, 10th team in the country. They've beaten up and down NC State school. They've lost to Louisiana, Ole Miss, and UVA. What would this mean? What would this win mean to UConn playing a Wake Forest team coming to the rent this Saturday?
Well, for all intents and purposes, in terms of national measurement and taking into consideration factors of conference realignment and everything else, it would prove that they're taking steps to become a better competition and a better team and an appropriate team for a possible Power 4 upgrade and promotion. So it's pretty important along those lines. I think for the players and for the coaches themselves, in terms of trying to elevate the overall profile, in terms of being a Power 4 equivalent independent, it'll probably mean a lot. And also for the players who transferred in or who just came in and were recruited, who saw the schedule when they were in high school or at other colleges, seeing the type of competition that they're playing, the chance to prove to themselves, the type of players, the type of football players they are, what kind of caliber they are, and to prove it against competition that's along the lines of, quote, top notch in terms of those conferences.
Yeah, for sure. And I couldn't agree more. Given UConn's desire to prove themselves, as you're saying, especially having lost already to an ACC school in Duke, where they felt like they probably should have won on the road, what adjustments can they make against, I know it's a different team, but against another ACC opponent to secure a win this time? For me, I'll open it up to you, but for me, I think it's going to be to get away from the slow start. They got down early to Duke and they had to rally back, and I felt like they didn't have enough in the tank. Do you agree with me there, or is there something else that kind of stands out?
Well, if you recall, every time we've elevated competition, it's always been a number of plays. It's been a series of plays in the past, when we've been blown out. Now it's down to a handful of plays. We have to play to our standard and to the standard of winning every single play, as demanded by that level of competition to secure wins. Coaches, you'll continue to hear them say, football games aren't easy to win. And there's a reason. You got to coordinate all those guys, have them do all their jobs, execute at a high level, operate as a unit at a high level to secure wins. And when you're playing competition, that has to be extremely consistent across the board, throughout the game and throughout the season.
No, it's so true, and it's so fair. Well, I don't know if we're going to get Bobby back in here, but I'm going to bring up one more question for you on this topic, and then we're going to move on to the second segment. With Wake Forest is converting on 66% of their fourth downs, do you see them as an aggressive team, or do you think it's more kind of just situational? Like I looked at that number and I looked at some of the situations they were in. They typically play like a money ball style. Like they rely heavily on analytics. Is this UConn defense up for the challenge to really kind of settle this, to kind of take on this Wake Forest team that's led by Hank Bachmeier and Damon Claiborne?
Well, these are the cards we have to play, right? So they have to find a way to be successful in order to beat this team. That's their MO. That's how they operate. They like to pressure the defense by going forward in those situations. So quite frankly and simply, we have to answer the call to stop them. That's going to be key to winning the game. And I can't put it any more simply than that.
Sure. No, that's fine. We're gonna take a break and find out if Bobby's okay and can come back and join us. And if not, it's me and Pete for the rest of the show. You guys are in for a treat. I don't know what to tell you. But we're going to talk a little bit about Nick Evers' return and how he affects the offense going forward, coming up after this. Hey guys, we all know that sometimes intimate moments don't always go as planned, and that's okay. When it comes to your confidence in the bedroom, there's a solution. Hims is here to help you tackle those tough moments with ease, offering access to personalized ED treatments right from the comfort of your home. Hims has doctor-trusted treatments, including chewable options and generics that are up to 95% cheaper than brand name Viagra and Cialis. And the best part, it's all done online. No uncomfortable doctor visits or insurance needed. You just answer a few simple questions on their website, and a licensed medical provider determines the right treatment for you. If you're approved, your medication is shipped directly to your door in a discreet package for free. With thousands of satisfied subscribers, Hims is transforming men's healthcare one step at a time. Start your online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's hims.com/lockedon for your personalized treatment options. Again, visit hims.com/lockedon to get started. Restrictions apply. See website for details. Oh, it's my good friends at Home Field. Hey, Husky fans, get ready to show off your UConn pride with the coziest gear around from Home Field. Does this look familiar? This is a Home Field shirt right here. They've got the best vintage-inspired design to keep you looking sharp and feeling comfortable. These are super soft, whether you're at the game or watching from home. And right now, you can score big with an exclusive offer. Just use promo code UConn24 at checkout. Get 15% off your entire order. So don't miss out on those premium styles repping UConn. Head over to homefield.com now, homefieldapparel.com now, and grab your favorites. Let's show everyone what Husky Pride is all about. Remember, promo code UConn24 gets 15% off on your first order. And as always, go Huskies. All right, we bring back Pete Callan of the College Football TNT podcast, helping me out as always on Friday, and want to jump into this next question, man. I think for me, we all saw 2 weeks ago against Temple the impact of not having Nick Evers at quarterback and what that does to this offense that seemed like it was kind of an unstoppable train, right? How is his return going to impact that run-heavy offense? We talked about it a little bit last week. Maybe they shy away from design runs, and you thought about maybe he doesn't run as much to his right. Maybe it's more left to protect. Do you think that's going to give that mobility? His mobility is going to give them an edge over Wake Forest in this game?
Absolutely. Nick allows the offense to play 11 on 11 in the run game. And with his legs and with his mobility, it just adds an extra dimension, an extra threat for the offense. Sometimes he manages to get 3 or 4 yards at a time, sometimes 6 or 7, but those yards, make a difference, especially in key situations where instead of being in 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, we're in 3rd and 4, 3rd and 3. Definitely in situations where we can convert and continue drives and get in scoring position. So he's an extremely important factor, I think, in increasing the chances of winning. Joe's definitely held his own. As we elaborated in our podcast, it seems that whenever teams have had time to game plan for him, it slowed him down a little bit. Although last game, he definitely answered the call in key situations and made key plays to help the team win. So, but Nick definitely adds an extra dimension.
Absolutely. And Wake's rushing defense allows 141 rushing yards per game on average. So UConn has an opportunity to exploit this and control the game clock. I think I would look for Evers to use his legs and help set up opportunities for his running backs like he has all year. So one other nugget I've gotten out of some of my spies down here in North Carolina is the possibility of exploiting Wake's secondary. That's been pretty vulnerable all year. If Evers can connect with Skylar Bell, do you see them taking advantage of Wake's secondary early, or how do you see the flow of the game? Because we've talked a lot about what Nick does, making it 11 on 11 football, but this weakness of a defense is in the secondary. I know they're giving up 141 rushing yards a game, but it's like a sieve out in the secondary. This is not a team that is really giving up a lot of resistance when it comes to passing games. Do you see Gordon Samus opening it up early, using pass to set up run and then control the game based off that?
If it's based off of what we've been doing and doing successfully, yes, absolutely. I don't see Gordon, straying too far from, what he's already been doing. He's not going to automatically go, 5 wide or spread and just try to air it out. That's not our strength. But I can see with the threat that we pose as a running team, drawing up 7, 8 in the box, creating one-on-one situations with our receivers. I can definitely see us trying to take advantage of that, particularly against a young secondary. So it's going to be all predicated on that. And I definitely think that Wake's secondary is drawing the attention of Gordon and everybody on the offense.
Wake Forest has scored 20 touchdowns and has a pretty balanced attack in the red zone. I think their efficiency is something like 60% of the time when they're in the red zone, they score. How does UConn's red zone defense compare, and what strategies might they employ to prevent Wake from getting in the end zone if they do end up getting in the red zone there, or in the green zone, as some of the NFL coaches call it?
Well, with their slow mesh read system, it definitely opens up threats for run and pass, particularly in the red zone, which is probably why they're so efficient. Makes linebackers freeze enough to open either passing lanes, or if they're too aggressive, definitely open up passing lanes. And if they commit to the run, open up, everything else. So they got, you kind of just have to play real discipline on defense. It's going to be assignment football. What you saw Clemson do and some of the other teams do, they attacked them. Clemson attacked them more with the 4-man front, using line stunts. When you watch the game against Louisiana, they really attacked them. It's very similar to what we've been doing to other teams in their 3-3-5 scheme. So Matt Brock definitely has a library of film to look at to see how he wants to attack Wake. I think we have as good or better, as good athletes or better than Louisiana for sure. Not quite to the caliber of Clemson, but we have enough to stop them and do some good things against them defensively.
All right, from the power of podcasting, he returns. Bobby Wilson, thanks for being in the show for the first minute, and then I don't know, something happened. You got attacked by a bear or something, and then now you're back.
Go with that.
Yep, you were saving children from a burning church. I get it, man. It's hard being a superhero. All right, we were just talking about a bunch of different things in terms of how we're going to stop Wake. How's Wake going to deal with UConn? I have something that I feel like is interesting. Like I said, usually I ask Pete these questions, but I want to hear from you because you do this. You break this stuff down as good as anybody in college football. They give up, or Wake Forest averages about 260 yards passing a game. It's pretty decent. It's not elite in college football, but it's damn good. And they have a solid aerial attack. Hank Bachmeier is sneaky quick. He's not the athlete that Nick Evers is, but he can make plays. How is UConn's pass defense going to respond to Wake's ability to move the ball through the air?
Well, Wake's going to look to spread us out, which is the same thing that Maryland and Duke did. And obviously, we grew in that process from the Maryland to the Duke game. So hopefully we will see that continue as well. One thing that I really noticed watching Hank Bachmeier play is when he's on, he's on. He's accurate. He has a good completion percentage. The thing that you can do to him is you can rattle him with pressure. So part of us being able to cover correctly is going to be getting pressure on him as well. It's going to go hand in hand in that regard. If we're able to get pressure on him, it can force him to making some mistakes. And I've noticed in the past as well, watching him, that once you get pressure, he can start to see ghosts a little bit, and the pressure is in his head, even though it might not necessarily be there, type of thing. So I think that's a huge aspect in what we need to do to stopping their passing attack, because like I said, they're going to spread us out. They got 4 wide receivers who are pretty decent players, good athletes. Their tight ends, it'll be interesting to see how they implement that aspect into the game, because they in the past they've been able to do that very well. Their coaching staff has done a good job throughout the tenure that they've been there, utilizing that aspect. So we are gonna have our hands full in that regard.
For sure. And Pete, this is something I talked to Bobby pre-show about when you weren't on, which is, and I'm going to surprise you with this, which is I talked to a beat reporter down here that covers Wake Forest that for the first time all year, so this isn't something that UConn's going to be able to see on film. They can go back and look at the concepts, but for this specific year, they've had all 3 tight ends available. So that may change some of their personnel groupings. How would you handle that as a defensive guy if they when they throw something at you that you haven't really kind of been able to key on film?
Well, defensive staffs, coordinators definitely will take care of that contingency. Going back on film from last year, possibly, to see how they use formations to exploit those tight end matchups. Usually when you use extra tight ends, you're just trying to create extra gaps in order for the run game to fit through. And especially with their mesh concepts, it's definitely, adds an extra layer of pressure to the defense when you can add extra gaps that they have to cover. That opens up passing lanes even more out of your RPO game. And so in order to answer that, quite frankly, it's even more important about, getting certain defensive matchups in if you can get them. And as mentioned before, creating, lining up properly and basically playing good assignment football in order to stop those plays on both ends. Pretty much, basic concepts, but it can be challenged to execute depending on how your personnel matches up with theirs.
So I'm hearing you say this, and you both can answer this, but Pete, since you brought it up, and I'm not saying that I don't know what this is, but if you are not necessarily new to this, or if you're a UConn basketball fan and you jump on Locked On UConn and you want to know about UConn football, you're talking about mesh concepts. Tell me if you don't know what a mesh concept is, talk to me, Pete, about what that looks like, because there's a few different ways that you can explain it. But how do you explain that to the novice college football fan?
Basically, a mesh is the space between a running back as they pass by the quarterback, usually on a handoff exchange. It can be on any running play, but it's particularly important when you're implementing option type football, where quarterbacks are reading defensive linemen or secondary players like linebackers to indicate whether or not they give that football to the running back. What makes Wake very unique is that they take a lot of time with that mesh to implement a read and to dictate and basically make a secondary player nervous, a linebacker who has both pass and run responsibilities, pressure him in that split second to make a move, whether to commit to the run by charging up to the line of scrimmage or dropping back to pass. And so, Wake is very unique in the fact that it's not usually a quick mesh like in most option systems. Usually they try to have that back hit that line of scrimmage fast in order to pressure the offense. They do the opposite. They slow it up because they want to open up passing lanes, because they play with the types of quarterbacks that can run enough, but they can deliver accurate throws down the field and create that extra pressure on defense by running run pass option plays more effectively and more frequently by using that type of delay in their play calling.
Appreciate that. Bobby, I'm going to ask you a different question. Dave Clawson, Wake Forest's head coach, has done a great job at Wake. Had them, close to, and I think they won the ACC title. Were they two or 3 years removed from an ACC title, outright ACC title? They've been in the mix. They've had guys like Sam Hartman there. They've had some really good. They've got NFL wide receivers right now in that are playing on Sundays. But this team is a little different. It's younger. His philosophy is strong recruiting, redshirting as many freshmen as possible, and having, an older team. What do you expect from this Dave Clawson run team against UConn on Saturday? Do you think that we're going to see the kind of the bumbling team that played against Clemson, or I would expect probably a team that's looking to get right, if you will? I know UConn's not a get right game, but that's probably the way that they're looking at this in terms of for the rest of their season.
I would agree with that. I mean, they need to win the game from the perspective of them potentially making a bowl game, because the game they need to get. Dave Clawson's a very talented coach. He's good at what he does. He runs a really good program there, and they do things the right way there. He loves to recruit and develop, like you said. So the new version of college football with all the NIL and everything that's in place could hinder a program like Wake moving forward. It'll be interesting to see what that looks like moving forward for them. But coming into this game, you're going to see a team that's very well coached, and they're gonna do things the right way, and that's what they do, and that's how they're going to look to beat us.
No, it's, initially the feedback wasn't great, because you kind of sound like Aaron Neville in a radio, like, there's like a lot of pausing and stuff like that. If you're old enough, like me, you'll get that Aaron Neville reference, like a radio. Let's try to find FM. But anyway, the ending is what I was looking for, because he is very kind of like an old school coach. Him and Jim Mora are probably similar in that respect, because they've been around forever. But I'm just interested to see what this team comes in looking like, because having lived in North Carolina now for almost 15 years, Wake's been good. Like Wake's been a solid football program for the entire time I've been down here. And you really can't say that about too many, ACC schools. So they're going to have a lot of pride coming into this game. They're not going to want to go 1-5. They're definitely not going to want to lose to UConn. For me, it's like a perception game on both sides. Wake doesn't want to lose to an independent like UConn, and UConn wants to beat an ACC school to say, see, we can win on a national stage. So it'll be really interesting come Saturday at the Rent. When we return, we're going to talk a little more around what are we going to talk about? UConn's passing game. I really want to dive into that because I think that's going to be the key to this game. I think everybody knows that both these teams want to run, but the team that passes better likely is going to end up, I know it's simplistic, likely going to end up winning this game. When we return, we'll talk about that. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, like UConn's going to win by X amount of things, plus we're going to get a Cam Robinson touchdown, you can get all those latest stats and view the live play-by-play and so much more. When you place your bets, you can start with $200 in bonus bets if you don't have an account, guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com to get started. And you're back on Locked On UConn with the smoking hot phone of Pete Callen and the radio voice sound of Bobby Wilson sounding like an FM radio that we're trying to get signal in the middle of nowhere. But we're back, and we're excited about this Saturday's game. Controlling the ground game is going to be key, but I really do feel like exposing that secondary is probably going to be a bigger deal. Both these teams like to score a bunch of points. You've heard Jim Morris say, what gets you excited? It's putting points on the board, right? I want to get your thoughts on this, Bobby, first. What's more important? Containing, I don't think you're going to control Damon Claiborne. I don't think we're going to stop him and not have 50 yards rushing or something like that. Is it maintaining some semblance of control over him, or is it going to be about exposing that secondary? What would you think would be the more important aspect of that?
From my perspective, I think we need to control what we can control. We can control what our offensive output can be by attacking them the ways that we know that we've scouted, the ways that we can take care of and move the football down the field. I watched this Wake Forest team, like we've been saying, this is a team that we can look to attack, that we can look to take some shots deep on. And we've been able to do that throughout the season when opportunities present themselves. In the Temple game, we didn't necessarily do it as well, but I think we're going to come back in this game and have real focus on hitting those plays when they're presented. Then from the defensive side, like you said, Damon Claiborne, he's a talented back. He averages 5.3 yards per carry. He's going to be able to get his when the opportunities present themselves for Wake as well. This is an ACC team at the end of the day. They got guys on that side who can really do some things. I'm really intrigued to see from our defensive perspective, though, how we're able to handle him in that regard.
Absolutely. Pete, how can UConn capitalize on what's an uncharacteristically turnover-prone Wake Forest team? Do you think it's going to be about the pressure that they're putting on Buckmeyer, or do you think it's going to be a collective effort between that defensive line, which played out of its mind against Temple and against other folks this season at home? Break down what you see are some key opportunities to kind of create some turnovers on the defensive side.
Pressure. Whether you pressure ball carriers to carry the ball in the cradle that is supposed to, trying to punch it out, strip it out, pressure the quarterback. He's trying to pass. Passing lanes that we've been doing the last few times. I think you look at guys like Langston Hardy having big games up front, just like he did against Duke. We have the players, we have the capability this year to do just about everything and anything we want to in terms of trying to dictate to an offense. And I think we should just go about doing it. We don't really have to change anything. We just have to operate soundly, communicate, and just execute. This is not a team that's overwhelmingly more talented than we are. And in fact, I think, from a talent standpoint, it's probably pretty even, in my opinion. So it's going to be a matter of us going out and playing and dictating our game to them.
Okay. All right, guys, it's about that time. I want to get some predictions. I want to get from Bobby first, and then Pete, and then I'll tell you if I agree with you guys or if I will go on a limb and say something different. Bobby, what's your prediction for this game?
I'm going to just say I hope I'm wrong. I'm going to go Wake Forest 24-21. I think at the end of the day, they have guys who have been there and done that at a high level. And I'm not saying we don't either, but this game it's huge for us, but it's also big for them too, where they need this game just to get to bowl eligibility in the future. And I think their coaching staff is going to have them prepared for that. And I think they're just going to make just enough plays to sneak out a win at the end.
What you got, Pete?
We have a coaching staff that's tired of it. We have a bunch of players that are tired of hearing the narrative that they can't win these big games. We're going to have a fan base that's going to show up like the 12th man they are, and we're going to win the game 34-24.
Okay. I like the intensity on that one. That was from the chest. Like you said that with your chest. You didn't just tiptoe around that one. I like that. I am. Oh God, I'm so torn on this one. But I'm gonna go with Pete on this. I think UConn wins this game 37-34 on a Freeman 40-yard field goal at the gun. The rank goes crazy for a second week in a row. Not with a fumble recovery, but with a field goal that maybe we're a little nervous about, but he hits it right through the uprights, and we run out into the sunset 5-2. I'd like to point out that before we started doing this show together, I did a preview show of all the games they played. I've only been wrong about the Duke game. So I had them 5-1. I didn't have them 4-2. I had them spot on losing to Maryland, and then I had them beating Duke. But I hope I'm right about this as well, because I think Wake Forest is right for the picking the same way I said Duke was too. And I was almost right about that. So guys, you challenged me today with all your technical difficulties, but guess what? I love you both. I really appreciate you. Appreciate you coming on and being co-hosts on the show. Any parting shots before we go? Just words of wisdom. Anybody?
I hope I'm wrong. Go Huskies.
Fans be that 12th man.
Oh yeah, pack the rent.
Even
Dan Hurley's out there. My boy Dan Hurley's out there telling people to go. So absolutely, let's do it. Listen, this has been another episode of Locked On UConn. For myself, for Pete, for Bobby, get locked on. Make sure the Huskies win this game. Get to the rent. Pack it out. Let's go.